fame is just the resource of having people's attention. And once you learn that skill of garnering and capturing people's attention, it's really about, and this is that celebrity energy, that it factor. It makes people fall in love with you instantly.
Welcome to the Millionaire Maker Show, a podcast helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses online to create more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact. Now, with over 20 years of business building, coaching, and consulting experience, here's your host, author, speaker, and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsey Anderson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. I am your host, Lindsey Anderson, and today I have a very special guest episode for you. I am interviewing Miss Whitney Uland. Now, Whitney's specialty is all about how to be famous and how to tap into your celebrity energy to make your content and your marketing shine online. Whitney is an utmost professional. You're going to love this interview. You do not want to miss it. But before I hop into that episode, I want to make sure that you're signed up for my upcoming event. If you want to know how to sell more with social media, you want to build a high quality audience and make more sales with social media, make sure you're signed up for my upcoming event. All you need to do is head over to lindseya.com, put in your name and email, register for that event, and I will share with you my entire system on how to create a high quality audience on social media and get that audience to buy your high ticket services. This masterclass is perfect for you if you are an expert or a coach or a consultant or an agent, or you're selling professional services and you're ready to make more high quality and high ticket sales on social media. I'll share with you what to post. I'll share with you how to get those followers and turn them into clients, and how to be more profitable in your business to make more sales on rinse and repeat. You do not want to miss this masterclass. Go to lindseya.com to get signed up for that. Now, let's hop into my interview with Miss Whitney Uland. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. I really am so excited for today's episode. I have Miss Whitney Uland. She's a celebrity life coach and course creator. In her signature mentorship program, The Self-Made Celebrity, she teaches clients around the world how to tap into their celebrity energy. I found her and followed her on TikTok. I love what she brings and how she explains celebrity energy. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry. Whitney's going to explain it to us. So excited to have you on today, Whitney. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
So before we hop in, what would you say is something that is not well known about you? What is something that's interesting about you that not a lot of people know?
Oh, I think a lot of people don't realize that I'm a mom. I'm a single mom. I have a 2-year-old, and that always takes people by surprise, which is always so funny whenever I'll have clients and they're like, "Yeah, but I can't because I'm a mom," and or like that we love to use our kids as an excuse to not do things or
Yes.
whatever. And I'm just always, "Oh yeah, same, and I'm a single mom." And they're like, "Oh wait, what?"
I have no excuse for time, for energy, for motivation. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that. Yeah, you're right. I did not know that about you. And yeah, it adds a real dynamic to building a business and even showing up in your celebrity energy. So, 'cause
100%.
yeah, like
Yes.
mom energy and like celebrity energy,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love it. So tell me, let's start here. What in the heck is celebrity energy? Tell
Yeah.
us what it is.
Okay, so celebrity energy, it's the it factor. So it's that je ne sais quoi. It's like that thing that we can't quite put a finger on, but it makes us want to watch people. So, for example, I wasn't really allowed to watch television, listen to music, like that kind of thing. I was raised in a very conservative Mormon home. And so I don't really know who a lot of celebrities are, but I live in Los Angeles now. And so whenever I'm like walking through the supermarket, I can tell though that someone is famous. I can tell that they have this magnetism because I'm just drawn to look at them, and everyone treats them differently. I'm sure even if you haven't been in Los Angeles, people who have this energy, this celebrity energy that I call it, a lot of the times those are leaders. Those are the people that we just can't help but want to watch. And I used to think, and I think a lot of people think that this is something that you have to be born with, but I've learned how to tap into it and that it's really just a skill that anyone can learn. It's
Okay.
fun. Yeah.
Okay. So, how do we tap into this celebrity energy, this magnetism that will draw people to us? Is it more
Yeah.
than just confidence? Is it more than just confidence?
Yeah. So I think confidence is like such a big, I'm just like not a believer in confidence, if I'm honest. Like, unpopular opinion, confidence is okay. But yeah, just to me, confidence is putting something on. It's just always felt really fake to me. And it's always felt like something that the cool kids have that I didn't. And I don't know. So the way that I describe celebrity energy is the it factor, right? So my background is that I started out as an actor. And when you're acting, you're doing a scene, you never want to do, all actors know this, you don't want to do a scene with a dog or a baby. And the reason is not because they're cute or because they're annoying, it's because they, what's called pull focus, meaning everyone just wants to watch them. Now, the reason that everyone wants to watch them is because they are existing in this really present state. And that's what the celebrity energy is when you're in this hyper present state where you're unafraid of being seen and receiving love by the masses. So, what this takes, though, is overcoming the fear of being seen, overcoming any block that makes you think that you need to put something on or show up in an inauthentic way. So, for example, like even like breaking down, joking about like the mom energy versus the celebrity energy, my quote unquote celebrity energy is mom energy because that's who I am. Right. So, when I'm tapped into this, it's instead of saying like segmenting different parts of myself and saying, oh, this is where I'm going to show up confident and this is where I'm whatever. It's really about incorporating all of the parts of yourself and feeling safe being seen in all of those little things about you that make you weird or quirky or unique that and those are the things that make people fall in love with you is when they can see those things. So it's really about putting on confidence. It's about removing all of the layers that tell us that we can't just show up authentically as how we are.
I like the way you word that. So it's not something that like before I turn on a video to do a TikTok or before I walk into the store, I'm like going inside to find that Lindsay that needs to show up in this different way. What you're saying is you are that way all the time. You just learn how to remove all of those personas you're trying to put out and you just show up as your regular self and you teach people how to do that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's super fair. And I think it's because listen, this last year was when I like went through a divorce and all of the things that I think from like the outside or before I knew these concepts, I would think, okay, I'm going through this really challenging year, but I need to build my business. So let me put on a happy face and let me act like everything's normal or whatever. When really the way that my business really popped up and really exploded was by showing up authentically. And that doesn't mean I'm telling everyone about my divorce. It doesn't mean I'm telling everyone everything that's going on. It just means that I'm unafraid to be witnessed while I'm going through that. So even though I'm talking about my business, I'm not putting anything on. I'm not putting on this like the TikTok voice or I think something that's interesting we can look at is okay, so 80s infomercials, right? At the time, that was considered good marketing. And audiences have evolved, and now we're like, "That's not good marketing, right? That's really fake. That's really" and audiences are just getting smarter, and so it's the same thing with your presence and with your magnetism is when you're showing up on camera, and if you are putting on the, "Okay, now I'm putting on the on-camera voice. Now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be confident," audiences can tell, and they just wanna swipe past it, and so really what we're drawn to is this human connection and is when you're just being present and really just being yourself.
I love that. Okay. I'm going to have you give us some tips in a minute, but you say this phrase a lot on TikTok and I love it. And you just said it now and I want you to explain it, which is just popped off in my business. Or if you haven't popped off yet in your business, what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. So I think there's so much information out there that we're all trying to work on, right? Improve your funnel, get your sales system dialed in, all the things. And a big part of that is like overcoming objections and getting really good at like clear on what your audience needs or needs to know in order to work with you. Now, when I say pop up, what I mean is you just all of a sudden have such an explosion of an audience and that people just love you that they just want to work with you. You have to do a lot less objection handling. You have to do a lot less of figuring out the correct things in your business. So it's really, I like to tell my audience, fame is just the resource of having people's attention. And once you learn that skill of garnering and capturing people's attention, it's really about, and this is that celebrity energy, that it factor. It makes people fall in love with you instantly. And it's not, these are all things that people have misused for decades, right? To manipulate people or to whatever. But these are really just tools that you can use if you, and this is why I'm so passionate about helping good hearted creatives, entrepreneurs, things like that, because this is such a powerful influence. And if we have it in the right hands of people who are making a positive impact in the world, then it can be a really beautiful thing. And so I would say to pop off is to just jump on that momentum and be able to capture people's attention, have people fall in love with you quickly. And once you do that, then I don't think a lot of my clients realize that learning to create viral content and really learning how to convert clients and have an audience just fall in love with you, that's just a skill you can learn. It's not something that's reserved for special people or confident people. It's not something that like you can hack the algorithm to do. It's just about being seen and being authentic and letting people access you.
I love that. I love the way that you worded that. Was there a pivotal moment in your life that you were like, "Oh, that's what it is," that you would share with us?
It's a good question. Yes. So I'll just share. So, like I mentioned, my background was in acting and I had a BFA in musical theater. Like you could listen to, even now, still, I'll look back at my scene work or videos of me singing and I'm like, this still stands. I was like, I had a lot of talent. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't really translating into jobs. It wasn't translating into booking roles. I'd get to the final callback and then it just wasn't landing. And I finally found this manager and she had made a bunch of stars and she saw something in me, right? And she was like, yes, you have it. So I worked with her for several years. She couldn't figure it out either. And she was bringing in other casting directors. And eventually the dynamic became very abusive, where she was just tearing me apart, trying to figure out why and blaming me for why it wasn't working. And we were both just frustrated because again, we'd have a casting director or a producer come in and say, yeah, there's no reason that this product shouldn't be selling, right? That this talent shouldn't be getting work. But it just was falling flat. And so finally I got some self-respect. I was like, let's get out of here, and she just concluded you don't have the it factor. And so that really is just what set me on this. I was like, what? No, that is not true. And is this something that can be learned? Can it not? And that was what set me down this rabbit hole and really just combining that within the personal development that I had been working on and really that I had come to as a healing journey. When my dad passed away, I got involved in the self development space and the personal healing and the growth. And that's when I realized I knew how to be magnetic on camera, right? With television, what happens is you send in an audition video, and the audition video, there are very specific ways that you make an audition video pop, right? And it's about getting into that flow state, getting into that place where you feel safe being perceived. That's where you have the highest access to your creativity, right? So I learned how to do it in my audition tape, but then I would get to the callback and it would fall flat. And so it was really like dissecting, okay, why can I do it here and not in person? And then using the combination of these skills that I learned as an on-camera actor and then also with the personal development and saying, "Oh, this is what it is." So what was essentially happening was that I would get to the audition and then my nerves would kick in. Then I would be afraid of being seen. I would be afraid, even though I would want a job, subconsciously I was afraid of that attention because our brains don't want massive amounts of attention. It seems scary. It seems dangerous. It feels like it could threaten our survival or separate us from our family. Even though we have big dreams, our subconscious brain is going to be afraid of that change. And so I was finding I was subconsciously blocking the success from myself and blocking my energy until I figured all this out.
That makes sense. Okay, so 2 things there. So, flow, you mentioned flow a couple times. You're talking about, so do you help people actually get into that flow state, which is like the non-thinking state, and you help them tap into that like on command versus, "I really hope I'm in flow state today," kind of situation?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And a lot of that work really is about identifying where you already access that in your life. There are always parts of our life, right? Maybe it's playing with your kids, maybe it's doing a puzzle, maybe it's when you're writing content for your business that we are in that flow state. But the trick is being in that flow state while you're being perceived. So it's like bridging that gap there.
Makes sense, makes sense. Okay, and so you basically used self-development in all of your acting skills, and now you're just showing up like you can use those acting skills, but you're showing up very authentically because you're not afraid you're basically saying, "I was afraid of being famous deep down," and you solved that, like, you're no longer
Exactly.
afraid of that, and then you can be seen this way.
Exactly, and I also had this moment, this is a pivotal moment, I guess, that I was working on this project and I was producing it and it was during the pandemic where no one was making content, outside of their homes, right? There was nothing, everything was just social media because we'd all run out of Netflix shows because production had halted. And so I produced this project, it was with a bunch of improvisers, and we pulled us all together in the woods and put on live streamed improv shows, so there was a new show every night. And this is a great idea. So a lot of people were really interested. We had like NPR, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Good Morning America. All of them wanted to cover us, but they specifically wanted to cover me. They wanted to know the story of me and who I am. And at that time, I didn't feel safe being seen. I didn't feel safe in who I am and what my identity is and how I was showing up in the world. And so I got this insane stage fright. I had this like terrible, and I was having panic attacks. And I hired the wrong people. I hired people that I thought would fix I completely ruined it. I completely, like, sabotaged the project, and while I was working through that, we lost so much money, like, all of it all fell apart, and all of the news, everyone was like, "Yeah, never mind." Like, it just completely fell flat. I saw my friend who was a hypnotherapist. We did a session because I was just like, for the stage fright, like, there's some I didn't realize that all of these things were correlated, right? I just was like, "I'm having stage fright. Unfortunately, this
Wow.
project fell apart." Essentially, what it was that I was hiding who I am. Specifically, I was hiding from my mom. I didn't want her to see who I actually am. I didn't want her to know that I'm bisexual. I didn't want her to know my true identity. And so because of that, I was afraid of being under a microscope. I was afraid of all of a sudden having all of these cameras on me because I didn't feel safe in who I really am and who I was. And so because of that, I just found all these subconscious ways of blocking it and of pushing success away because I wasn't ready to be seen. And so that was a big moment as well of realizing, like, oh, this isn't just about getting jobs. This is about sustain, like, you will literally sabotage your whole career if you're not, like, if you don't feel safe being seen and you don't feel safe having this many clients or having this many eyeballs on you or having this many people watching your TikToks.
Yeah, I find that real interesting that it's several layers deep, and it's great that you like made it clear back to the mom level, right? Because those are the foundational beliefs. And so for you to be able to actually address those and then be able to overcome this, it really, as within, so without,
$100%. Yeah.
as they say. Okay. Amazing. So how do you help people with this problem, Whitney?
Yeah, so it depends if I'm working with someone one-on-one versus a course, but essentially what we have to do is figure out, like, what the blocks are, right? We have to see what feels threatening about being perceived. What are the parts that we're, I like to say, like, shoulding on ourselves. Oh, I should be this person. I should be showing up in this way. And so I teach my clients, like, a two-step process, and this is going to sound a little jargony. It is, but I'll try and break it down. But the first thing I say is that we have to rewire your brains. Our brains, we've evolved from cavemen, cavewomen, and that is our brains are wired with this innate herd mentality to not upset the tribe, to not, like, because we don't want to be abandoned. If we were in tribal days and we were abandoned, we'd have to find our own food, we'd have to find our own shelter. So we have this really primitive instinct to not upset anyone. And so, even though now showing up on TikTok is not going to actually threaten your physical survival, your brain thinks it is, right? If you say something and you get haters, you get trolls. If your parents see that you said something or your partner is embarrassed by what you're saying, whatever it is, anything that's going to create separation between you and your community, your subconscious brain is going to block. And then the second piece of this is what I call hacking your nervous system. So, what this is, we have to actually make you feel safe being seen. So, this is nervous system regulation. This is processing your emotions. This is EFT tapping. This is RRT. This is hypnosis. These are the things that somatically tell your body this is actually safe. Because while I lived in New York City and I was acting, I would take public transportation. And so, if I was on the subway and someone came on late at night and they were scary and I can't get off of the car, my protection mechanism would be to energetically shut down, to just become invisible and hope that this person doesn't see me. That's a really primal instinct that we have. And that's the same thing that happens again if we feel like our primal relations are going to be threatened by us showing up and being seen for who we authentically are. That's what happens. So again, it's rewiring your brain and showing your brain, like, oh, this is safe and you're not actually going to die. You're not being attacked by tigers. And then also coupling that with the nervous system regulation. I like to say with fame, it's like a video game, new levels, new devils. So if you're first trying to get your first 10,000 followers, it's like starting there and then upping that game higher and upping how safe you feel being perceived.
I like the way that you worded that. And what comes up for me, we also share a similar background, which is we were both I was born and raised Mormon, LDS. Were you born and raised
I
or?
was, yes.
Okay. And so a lot of that and this is fair for all religions, you say the shoulds. And so
Mhm.
you were both born with these are all the things you should. So I find it really interesting that now your life's work is getting rid of all the shoulds and figuring out the shoulds. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%, and I, like, secretly have this vendetta that I just wanna have more Instagram followers than the Mormon church now because I'm like, I want to help that many people undo all of this because it was so damaging for me, especially, like, being queer. I think it's damaging
Yeah.
for anyone just having these shoulds on your life, but, yeah, it's just I think again, that's my secret villain, like vendetta. But really, that's what it comes down to is like helping people live a more authentic life. And I always say like fame is really it's a spiritual journey. I found so much spiritual healing in this game of fame because it's all about personal acceptance and about it's really ultimately comes down to receiving love and feeling safe receiving love for who you authentically are. And that's really conditioned out of us in religion. It's we're taught we have to earn love or we have to prove love or we're not going to receive it unless X, Y, and Z conditions are met. And it's really about stepping into your own power, your own authority, and accepting the love from strangers, which is again, it's also just not instinctual for us to assume that people that don't know us will love us. But that really is instinctually people are afraid of fame and afraid of having followers or having fans or whatever because we're all afraid of being canceled or we're afraid of getting hate comments. We're afraid what our family will think, whatever. But really, if you can make peace with and show up in a way that you feel safe being perceived, it's going to feel like you have this like soul connection, this like soul contract with your followers, with your audience. You're
I
able to
love
like
that.
really
I love
share.
that, and I find this in the people that I consult with, like, ultimately, they are scared that their spouse or their mom or the people they graduated high school with are going to
Totally.
judge them, and so back to your comment around, "My mom energy is just me energy." If you can just become who you are on or off camera, then energetically you're better off. It takes less energy to put on all these personas, and it's just like a way more peaceful way to live life.
Oh, 100%. And it's such a more gratifying way to live life. And I think it also comes down to a lot of this work is about shifting your identity and really
Right.
challenging what we think about, or at least I used to think about celebrities or people with large influence or following as a different kind of person than me. It was like I put them on a pedestal. And instead, it's like betting on yourself of what if that's just a normal person? What if that's just a result I can create? What if I can show up in that energy? And what if who I am is enough to make that big of an influence? And I'm just like, I'm such a believer that like we need more good-hearted influences in the world. If you have an important mission, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably want to make a positive impact in some way, shape, or form. And so I just think we live in such an exciting time with the internet where really anyone can become what I call like a self-made celebrity, which means you don't have to just be chosen and gatekept by Hollywood or cherry picked by the casting directors or whatever. You can really step into this. But the first thing is believing that this is possible and that it's safe for you to do.
I love that. What are some of the biggest obstacles people face that you worked with?
That's a good question. There's 3 really main things that we have to look for. So the first is and we just wanna identify, like, where you feel the least safe. So something that I've noticed is whatever platform you are resistant to showing up for, it kind of reveals where you feel blocked. So, for example, if you feel like, for the longest time, I felt totally fine showing up on TikTok, but I was afraid of Instagram. Now that's because for me on TikTok, I felt like I was just talking into a void. Where on Instagram, I was like, this is my community. These are people who are still Mormon. This is my family. I don't want them to see me in this way. I have clients who like they want to build their business on LinkedIn, but what they struggle with is they don't see themselves as a professional. So it has this interesting mirror effect. Whereas I'll also have people who they have intense stranger danger. So they are afraid of TikTok, but they feel like Instagram is safe. So it's like identifying that. But the 3 main blocks. So the first one is going to be just fear of the unknown, fear of stranger danger. If I were to ask, anyone to close their eyes and picture a million people, you literally can't. Like our brains cannot perceive a million people, and
Mhm.
our brains are going to reject anything that feels unknown or feels dangerous. And I grew up in a household where the 24-hour news cycle was on. And also with Mormonism, some of the ideas I picked up were that the outside world was bad, the outside world was dangerous. So that's going to be a big one that blocks people is if you have this kind of stranger danger get you or, is just an unknown, unfamiliar territory. The second is going to be your in-person, like, community. So this is obviously and I would say this is probably the biggest one is what you're mentioning. I don't want my parents to see this. I don't want my spouse to see this. As people are transitioning, I think that out of, like, maybe a corporate job to building their own business, that's also a little bit challenging because 'cause they're like, "I
Mhm.
don't want my
Yes.
coworkers to see this," or whatever. And then the third is going to be past negative experiences, and these are specifically in the spotlight. If we think about a kid touches a hot stove, they learn, like, we don't touch that anymore. So if you've ever had an experience where you were canceled, you got negative attention, you were in your 5th grade talent show and you got made fun of, you were the weird creative child and everyone said that you were too loud or too boisterous or whatever. Those are and I think a lot of the people that I work with, I would say it's about 50% like entrepreneurs and 50% artists and creatives. And I think there's a lot of in what we're doing, it's we're all groundbreakers, we're all mavericks in whatever we're doing. We're out there to change the world, and our world isn't really set up for us. Like, it's not like it's made for the people who like fall in line and follow the patterns. And I think there's also just like a lot of conditioning because a lot of us were rule breakers. And so then we were taught that there's something inherently wrong. And so that's that, like that third thing of being like, oh, me being who I am is dangerous and people can't see this. So those are
I
usually
love
the
the
old
way you
ones.
broke that down. Yeah, like those are 3 real fundamental things that once you solve those, not only can you tap into fame, but like your whole life will be better because
Oh
you'll
my
have like
God.
this unresolved trauma resolved.
100%. And then it taught you subconsciously that it's not safe to have friendships or I can't, whatever. When you unblock this in your for fame, then you all of a sudden it's like magically now a new friend group comes and you feel safe and supported and accepted into this friend group. And so it really does have these, and I think that's also part of the fear is that we do realize that showing up online, creating a following, it does have real life implications, right? People will, and there is this little, it's like my friend and client calls it cringe mountain, where it's like you have to go up it at first, and everyone's, what are you doing? Who do you think you are at first? And if you can make it past that, then that's where it gets a lot easier. But it's not like you're creating completely in a vacuum, right? I remember the first time, even though I felt like TikTok was me talking to the void, I remember the first time my cousin sent me one of my viral TikToks and I was just like, "Oh no, they found me." Like my family found me, right?
It's all come on.
They know. Yeah, exactly. It does have those real life implications. And if you do the work to overcome them, it can have real life implications in a really positive way.
Amen. Okay, I like the way you put that. So, can you give us something we can do every single day to start overcoming this and tapping into our fame? Is there something I can do every day here, Whitney?
Oh, that's a good question. So, this is going to be because obviously what I'm saying is like deep work, but this is what I think makes the biggest impact if you want to create a following. Is I always have my clients do a 30-day sprint. And what I mean by that is to show up every single day and make something on the content every day. Now, for, you don't, I'm actually not really a believer in consistency. I don't think you have to be super consistent in order to pop off. I don't think that's like requirement. However, you do need that 30-day runway of figuring out and getting used to being on camera. And all of your demons are going to show up, and everything you're afraid of is going to happen in those 30 days where it's like you're just going to be faced with everything that you're afraid of. But I also like to give the caveat that as you do that, to show up to your social media like it's actually a person who wants to hear from you. So I know
Yeah.
that sounds overly simplified, but even just showing up and really it's like anytime if you get off a client call and there was a big breakthrough or you had your own breakthrough or you learned something new, anything that would serve and the impulse that you wanna look for is when you have something that you're like, "Oh, I wanna text my friend about this," or "I wanna tell my business partner about this." That is the moment, that is the impetus when you want to start showing up on social media. And to specifically, especially if you're doing reels or TikToks, to show up as if you're on FaceTime. And if you practice that for 30 days, that's going to it's going to, again, put you in the line of fire. I will say most people get partway through that and then they give up because it's really challenging and because a lot of this is subconscious blocks. However, if you do that and you face all of them, then that will make the difference between like you'll overcome all of the fears that are keeping you stopped.
Yeah, basically you gotta do some reps here in order to
Yeah.
like to see what's going on here and to develop the skills and to see where your demons are and to like get out of your own way. So it's more put your head down and just get it done
And
and
just
see
do
what
it.
happens. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
I
think
like that.
also when you show up and you don't die, it just shows your brain, oh, we're okay.
I can make a TikTok without someone killing me. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
exactly.
what do you think is the future of this, of celebrity energy? What's the future here?
For
Do
the
you think
world.
more and more people are gonna be, like, into this, or is it yeah, like, we were talking about, like, a lot of, like, deep work and healing work and
Mhm.
what some people would consider woo-woo. What do you see as the future here?
Oh, I see that as the future. I think we're just like really at a time we think about, even in terms of this is the first generation where people consider that there are more people who consider themselves spiritual than religious. So I think as humans, we have this call to spirituality and we also have this call to community. And I think that now I think a lot of people didn't understand the power or really what social media was even for. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve to it in terms of we see that like teenage depression rates are higher now because of social media. I think that unfortunately that generation did take a little bit of the brunt as we learned to adapt to this new medium. I like to think about, when I lived in New York, there was this framing gallery called Jack's Framing Gallery. And I went there the first time because I needed a frame, but then I got to know Jack and I understood what he was all about. And I learned about his son and I learned about how his business was inherited by his dad. And so then every time I drove or I walked by the store, I would pop in and I would say hi and I bring him a coffee, right? That's really the power of social media. And that's what we can create now through these parasocial relationships and build community that are based on shared values, not just on proximity. And so I'm just such a believer that like now, again, because of the internet, we have this opportunity for more good-hearted artists, creatives, influencers, entrepreneurs to be the tastemakers and to say, and it all starts with that self-identifying and saying, I have a mission and I want to be a thought leader. I want to be the next Jay Shetty or the next whoever it is. And really, I think that as we normalize that fame is not a bad thing. It's for people who want to make an impact, then that just gives more people with good missions more encouragement to create their own platforms, which is just going to make ripple effects.
More good in the world that way, more good in
Exactly.
the world. I like that. All right, here's my final question. What is one thing you wish you would have known before you got started?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that I would have been it's so funny because it's like all of this work comes down to trusting myself. And I think if I had done that more at the beginning, I would have saved a lot of money. I think that there has been in the digital entrepreneur space, it can be easy to see someone who you think has a solution to what you're struggling with and then to try and outsource the solution to that problem by paying them. And I think that there were a lot of things that even just I've never anytime I've tried to outsource a problem in my business, it didn't get solved. And then it turns out I could solve it myself. And I know that there comes a time where then that's not scalable, but I do think trusting myself more, and that's been the journey for me of building my business. So unfortunately, I don't think it's a lesson I could have learned sooner, but it would have saved me a lot of time.
That's great. Whitney, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to turn the time back over to you. Tell us how to find you and anything else that you want the audience to know.
Thank you. Yeah. So you can find me on social media. I'm at Whitney Uland. Howtobefamous.org is my website. I love working with clients. I have different ways of working with them in terms of digital courses, a 6-month group mentorship program. And then I also do work with entrepreneurs one on one who are interested in becoming the next thought leader and the next name in what they do. Yeah. If this work calls for you and you feel like you're ready to make a massive impact, I'd love to help you with that.
Now, you have a pretty sizzling hot 5-day email sequence course, right?
Thank you.
You give away.
I do. Yeah, I have a free it's a 1-hour training and yeah, it's a 5-day sequence. So we'll I guess maybe link that in the show notes as well. And this is really
Yeah, is that on your website as well?
it should be at least. It should be one
Okay.
of the little pop-ups, right? But it really is a 1-hour like deep dive on exactly that work of rewiring your brain and hacking your nervous system so that you feel safe taking up space and creating the resource of fame.
I love it. Thank you, Whitney, for sharing all your insights. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you have it, folks. Another amazing interview here on the Millionaire Maker Show. A big thank you to Whitney for being on the show and sharing with us her strategy on how to become famous. What a pleasure it was to interview. Now, as a reminder, make sure if you want to know how to sell more with social media and you want my strategy, the exact strategy that I use and my clients use to generate millions of dollars worth of sales all through social media, make sure you head over to lindseya.com. Get registered for my upcoming live masterclass, and I'll show you my exact strategy. lindseya.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and this episode of the podcast, please take the time and go and leave us a review. It's the reviews that allow us to continue to bring you the Millionaire Maker Show week after week and to bring you these strategies that work right now to help you generate more sales and be more profitable in your business. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. Cheers to you and your success.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Maker Show with online business consultant and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsey Anderson. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.